October the 4th, 1957. A steel sphere the size of a beach ball crosses the night sky, beeping as it goes, and it's called Sputnik. And within hours, American newspapers are calling this a national emergency. Now, 12 years later, a man plants a flag on the moon, and the world seamlessly agrees the United States won. The race is over, and it's time to pack things up. Except it really wasn't over. It just went quiet for a few decades. Right now, in the year of 2026, three great powers are racing back to the moon, racing towards Mars, and racing to control the orbit above our heads. And almost nobody is talking about it like the emergency it actually is. This is indeed the second space race, and this time there are three players at the table, not two. Part 1. How the first one ended. Let's rewind this for a second, because the ending of the first space race explains everything about how the second one started. After Apollo 11 in the year 1969, the US had proven the point. Budgets got slashed almost immediately, and NASA's share of the federal budget dropped by more than half within just a few years. And the Soviet Union quietly gave up on the crewed lunar landings after a string of failed rocket tests. And so, by the 1990s, the old rivals weren't racing anymore. They were just building a space station together. The ISS became a symbol that the fight was over, permanently. And so, for nearly 30 years, that held tight. Human spaceflight became relatively slow, expensive, and mostly cooperative. Then, quietly, three things happened at almost the exact same time. And none of them looked like a space race until you looked back. Part 2. The third player nobody was watching. And so whilst America and Russia were busy managing a slow decline in their partnership, China was doing something almost boring by their comparison. They were following a plan. In the year 1992, the Chinese government approved something called Project 921. This was a methodical, decades-long roadmap to crewed spaceflight. No dramatic press conferences, no moonshot speeches, just steady compounding progress. Mission after mission for over 30 years. And by the 2020s, China had its own space station, Tiangong, in permanent orbit. And its change program had already pulled off something neither the US or the Soviets ever had managed: landing on the far side of the moon and bringing samples home from it. Now, China has a stated goal: land its own astronauts on the lunar surface before the year 2030. The hardware: a new heavy lift rocket, a crew capsule the size of Mengzhou, a lander called Luanane, has been moving through testing on a direct schedule. And beyond the landing, China has an even bigger ambition: a permanent research base at the lunar South Pole, built together with one very familiar old rival of the rest, indeed, Russia. Part 3. The Fallen Giant. Now here's the history lesson that we can appreciate. The nation that won the first leg of the original space race, first satellite, first man in orbit, is now, by most measures, the weakest of the three. Russia hasn't successfully landed anything on the moon since 1976. In 2023, its Luna 25 probe crashed in the surface during its landing approach. The country's first attempt in half a century ended in wreckage. Since then, the program has been delayed again and again, and the next generation of Russian missions, Luna 28, 29 and 30, aren't even expected to fly until between 2032 and 2036. Now, Western sanctions, a brain drain of engineering talent, and a war economy have really hollowed things out for the Russians. Well, Russia still has its ambitions, and it still talks about building its own space station once the ISS retires. But its talk is that's largely left here. Increasingly, Russia's role in the new race isn't a rival to the West. It's a junior partner in China's lunar-based project. The empire that once led the way, now riding on someone else's rocket. If you want a one-line historical parallel, this is similar to the British Empire in 1950. Technically a great power, still full of pride, but quietly no longer setting the pace. Part 4. The wild card. America's private army. And so there's America's side of the board here, which looks completely different from either of their rivals, because it isn't really one program anymore. it's two. There's NASA's official plan, Artemis, a government-run, congressionally funded and true form of American space policy since the Apollo, repeatedly delayed and reshuffled depending on who's in office. Artemis 2 sent astronauts around the moon for the first time in 50 years, but the crewed landing keeps sliding. First one date, then another, while China's timeline has barely moved in years. And then there's the other half, Elon Musk's SpaceX, a private company run by one of the most polarizing men on the planet, building a rocket, Starship, that's meant to eventually carry humans not just to the moon, but to Mars. Starship has had a rough. Now, Starship's had a very difficult public adolescence, spectacular explosions, aborted landings, congressional hearings, but it's also achieved something no other rocket in history has, catching a returning booster out of the sky with mechanical arms again and again, chasing full reusability. That's the technology NASA itself is quietly counting on to get its own astronauts to the lunar surface. And even in Elon Musk's own timeline, Mars has slipped badly. In early 2026, he pushed back SpaceX's Mars mission by 5 to 7 years to focus on the moon first. And it's not the first broken Mars promise here, and it likely won't be the last. But here's the strange part. Even with all the explosions, all the delays and all the broken promises, the US still has something neither China or Russia can offer. A rocket company that's allowed to fail in public, learn fast and try again next month. And that's not how empires usually build weapons of national prestige. And it might be exactly why America still has the chance to stay ahead here. Part 5. Why this isn't really just about flags anymore. Here's what makes this second race more dangerous than the first, historically speaking. In the 1960s, the moon was a scoreboard, a place to prove a point and then come home. But this time, the destination is the prize. The lunar South Pole has ice water, the raw material for rocket fuel and life support. Whoever builds a base there first doesn't just plant a flag, they control access to it. And both the American and the Sino-Russian lunar base plans are aimed at exactly the same real estate for exactly that reason. And that's before you even get to what's happening closer to home. The orbit directly above your head, increasingly crowded with military and dual satellites from all three powers. Watched far more closely than generals they are by the public. The first space race was a proxy, and it was fought with propaganda and rocket technology. This one is a proxy war fought with supply chains, orbital real estate, and a control of resources that didn't even matter to Cold War planners. Water on another world. So who is actually winning in the year of 2026? Well, China is the tortoise, unglamorous, methodical and running almost exactly on their schedule. America, the wild card, technically ahead, chaotically managed, betting everything on a private company that keeps blowing up its own hardware to get it right. And then there's Russia, the nation that started this whole story back in 1957, is now sort of watching from the sidelines of a race that it once did lead from. And so history has a habit of repeating itself in strange shapes. The first space race ended with a flag and a handshake, and well, it seems that this one won't end until someone controls the ice at the bottom of a crater that never sees sunlight. Now, if you enjoyed this video, guys, and I'm sure you will like my future and past videos, because this story is far from over and neither is this channel. So please do subscribe, like and comment, and I will see you on the next one.